war in the Middle East is causing fuel shocks in Australia and right across the globe. The bioenergy sector believes it can help with fuel shortages, with 400 people from the sector meeting in Sydney today to look at how to scale up production. Bioenergy is fuel made from feedstock, including grains, forestry and agricultural waste. Well, to take us through today's event is reporter David Claughton with me in the studio. Good to see you, David. So how significant could bioenergy be?
Well, we'd be starting from a very small base because we're still mainly oil, gas and renewables. Now, renewables is up to about 40%, so that's pretty good. But bioenergy, and by that I mean ethanol, which we produce in New South Wales at the Manildra plant. They take a lot of wheat from the countryside, they turn it into flour, and the byproduct of that is ethanol, which we get in E10 in the Bowser, or renewable diesel. So that will come from some of those things that we were talking about. The used cooking oil, tallow from the abattoirs, that's fat from animals, and canola oil. So quite a lot of the canola crop goes into biodiesel. So at the moment, only about 1% of our fuel comes from that. But it's a big issue, right? Because Australia uses a lot of diesel. We've been seeing the issues that a shortage of supply or panic buying is creating for regional Australia. For a lot of the big transport companies, ships rely on it. Aviation relies on it. Just about everybody who drives in the regional area will be using diesel because it's more efficient fuel-wise. So that's a big problem. If we could increase domestic production of biodiesel, that could really shelter us from some of these shocks that we're seeing from international events. So, it'd be great. In the EU, about 70% of their energy comes from these kinds of sources. So they get a lot of it from forestry, they get a lot of it from agriculture, and they also use waste. So we have 3 plants on the East Coast that are producing biodiesel, right? But they're only running at 10% of capacity. And that's because it's actually expensive and the demand's not there yet because it's too pricey.
So as you say, it's still a pretty small sector here. So what's needed to scale up production?
Well, there is a bit of talk about the government investing a lot of money. They have put in $1.4 billion. I spoke to a company called Licella, who are trying to get a project up in Queensland where they produce biofuels from sugarcane, and they got $8 million from the government. They're also putting money into supporting the development of aviation fuel, sustainable aviation fuel. I spoke to Airbus about that today. They told me there's no sustainable aviation fuel in Australia right now. So that's a big problem. But we're big travellers on planes. We love travelling on planes, and we have to anyway to connect with the rest of the world. And it's a very hard to abate source of carbon pollution, right? So the great thing about biofuels is that they only produce about they reduce the emissions by about 90%. It's a massive amount. And the maritime industry is very interested in this as well. I spoke to Ports New South Wales today. They're trying to figure out could we store it in our tanks because it's a little bit different from the normal oil-based product. Could we put it in a ship's engine? Yes, because it's just drop-in fuel. It's exactly the same as the diesel that we get in the pump. But what will it do to the fuel lines? So there's lots of issues around that, and a lot of people are talking about the need for a mandate. So the government's given grants. Now maybe they need to do a mandate. So in Queensland, they say 2% of your fuel should be biodiesel or ethanol. And in New South Wales, they say 9%. Maybe the industry is arguing we need a mandate of, say, 10%. GrainCorp is heavily involved in this, would love that. And Airbus say, it's not a bad idea, but maybe start at 2% because there's no way we could fill a big mandate like that.
So what could this mean then for agriculture, which would supply a lot of the raw material, of course?
Yes, well, it could be good, because you'd have another market for your canola and your wheat and your agricultural waste. Like piggeries, for example, they already use their waste to capture the methane, and it powers their own projects, right? So if there's more support for those things, they'll be able to build more of those methane plants. Farmers could get a better dollar because there'll be competition for their resource. But a lot of people are concerned about using food, like canola particularly, for fuel. But GrainCorp was saying to me today, look, we export 80% of our commodities like grains. We could surely hold some of that to produce fuel onshore, and that would be great for times like these.